07. So at the time of this recording, that's about 15 years. And I've seen a lot of people come down here. Some of them stay, some of them leave quickly, some of them stay for a couple years and decide it's not for them. Well, the goal of this video is to give you guys a sense of what to watch out for, what you might not like about Panama, and why Panama just sometimes doesn't work for some people. So, tiny bit of background. I've been doing real estate, again, since 07. We handle properties and clients from, we handle clients from all over the world, properties all over the country. So here are a couple of reasons that folks get frustrated with Panama. First of all, it can be a little warm down here, but hey, you can kind of get away from that up in the mountains, but not always. And it never really gets that cool in the mountains. I mean, the top coldest area, literally kind of top elevation wise, is going to be Volcan, parts of El Valle. It stays cool, but it doesn't stay cool year round. I mean, there are hot, humid days in Panama in the mountains, and most days in Panama City are pretty warm and kind of humid. That's an easy one. What about something that's a bit more subtle, a little bit more subtle that you might not be ready for? Doing business in Panama can be a bit of a challenge. I've found that Panamanians are, for the most part, very good, very straight people. However, locals, and not just Panamanians, but everybody doing business down here, details are not as important when it comes to due diligence, transaction, execution, and follow-up. Americans, to an extent Europeans, we're used to a kind of a different standard, a little bit more hand-holding, a little bit more anticipation, a little bit more guidance in terms of, hey, this is what's coming. This is what you should expect. This is what you need to have ready when you show up. You don't get that much down here. We try to deliver it as a company, but we are surrounded by people whom we work with that are, for the most part, very professional and diligent. However, it is a business environment. Now, with that comes a certain level of being a little bit more relaxed about things, right? Relaxed is a spectrum. You have countries like Singapore, which are very regimented, and you can't spit on the street, and you can't make too much noise in a restaurant, and you could probably get thrown in jail for being too loud in your house, right? I don't know, but the other side of that is Panama, and there's a middle ground there somewhere. But our side is bulleros, so folks are a little loud, a little loose. It's a little trashy sometimes. Trashy in the sense of on the streets. Get ready. You're gonna be walking in the nicest neighborhood, and you will see trash on the ground. Now, we have people who are paid by the government to come around and scoop it up with their little brooms and their little trash cans, but they're not getting everything. So be ready for that. It's a little descuidado, as they say in Panama. Just a little rough around the edges in terms of the aesthetics. What else? Things happen a lot slower, folks, and that's Latin America in general, isn't it? Unless you're in a place like Bogota or Buenos Aires, where you're dealing with a professional and they are just on top of everything. But hey, you'll get those people again in Panama, but you don't always. And man, oh man, dealing with the government, I mean, it's kind of tricky everywhere around the world, isn't it? Well, here in Panama, it's even trickier because it kind of all depends on who you get, right? We've had a situation where guy hasn't been able to get electricity to his house for like over a month. How is that even possible? Well, it was a bank foreclosure. There were some documents that were missing. We provided those documents, but then they asked for different documents, and get ready to do the document dance, guys. Because in Panama, it all depends on who you get. It all depends on how nice you are. You don't want to be the angry gringo being like, this is not how it's supposed to work. This is how it works. Unfortunately, you're in a different country. Okay, what else can I tell you? And I would love some comments on this one, y'all, because I didn't necessarily have a list of notes, but I thought that this was important to talk about to help manage expectations. Traffic, a little bit of traffic. A lot of traffic, actually. If you live in the city and you are trying to get around during rush hour, which is like from 7 to 8:30, Monday through Friday, and then pretty much all day for payday, which is every 2 weeks, and then on Friday afternoons, starting about 3 to about 6. If you're going from the city to the beach, leave early or leave real late. That might be a surprise for people. That might be frustrating for people. That might be amazing, depending on where you're coming from. Because, hey, it's still a small country. It's not like Brazil or Mexico where you're going to be in traffic for 3 hours to get 5 miles. I mean, that's real in other parts of the country, but we do have traffic. Roads are fine. Cost of living. Panama's not cheap anymore. Hasn't been cheap for about 10 years. You can still live cheaply. You definitely can, but you're going to be living like a local. You're going to be getting your food at the local small market, which might not be open every day and might not have what you're looking for. And when I say small market, I'm talking about fruit stands, set up in the park or on the side of the road versus grocery stores. Woo-wee, cheddar cheese, what are some other expensive items? I could do a whole broadcast on that, but Panama's not cheap. Real estate depends on where you're coming from, but generally not that cheap either. $1,000 a month for a condo. I mean, hey, $1,000 a month gets you a, 1 to 3 bedroom, again, depending on where you are. And I don't want to talk too much about real estate. Things take longer during real estate transactions also. Get ready for bankers that lose your documents or get fired. Get ready for a lot of people don't speak English here, y'all. Some of them do. A lot of them do, but not everybody. Usually not the front desk guy. Definitely not the taxi driver, but they're all almost to a fault pretty cool about it, unless you get frustrated. Like, why don't you speak English? Well, because I've never been to the US and I'm a product of public schools where they only speak Spanish. It's the beauty of it too, right? Learning a new language. Point being, guys, is do not expect everybody to speak English, despite what some of these websites tell you. Everybody speaks English in Panama. No, not the case, but that's okay, right? Panamanians are cool about it. They're used to having foreigners. By the way, Panama was a foreign country before it was Panama. It was Colombia. For a hot second, it was Spain too, Spanish territory. And then it was Colombia, and then the Americans pulled in their battleship and said, hey, we need that little stretch of land right there because we're going to build a canal, and either you can sign a real estate deal or we're going to go ahead and offer our support for a civil war. Didn't happen. Didn't need to happen. Colombians were like, you know what? Take it. We're good. Point with that little random historic analogy is that Panamanians are used to foreigners. It's amazing. You can be a, 7-foot tall albino. You can be a 3-foot tall, I don't know what the politically correct term is these days. I say midget with love, dwarf, little person. Panamanians, for the most part, don't look twice on foreigners, which is kind of cool. I mean, you don't have as much panache as a foreigner, unless you're going into like Darien or deep into Veraguas. But that's good and bad. If you want to be an exotic foreigner, go to Papua New Guinea or parts of Asia or parts of Latin America. But Panama, not so much. What else? Oh my God, I would love comments, but that's okay. Where you're watching from is always an easy one to shout out. But what else is? Why should people not come to Panama? What do they need to be ready for? It is close. It's an easy flight. It's kind of an expensive domestic flight situation right now. I mean, getting an hour-long flight to Bocas or up to San Blas, or even Colombia is a bit more expensive than it should be because it's not that far away. Furniture also kind of weirdly expensive. Medical care is great for the most part, but you got to know where to go. You know, I mean, like most large hospitals, private hospitals in the city, there's some amazing ones. In the interior, there's some decent ones, but it's not everywhere. Oh, what else? I think that's it. I love Panama. I mean, it's a great place to bring your family for an adventure, even if it's just a year to expose yourself and your young kids to life outside of your bubble. Panamanians are awesome. They are open and friendly and welcoming, but you got to give it a go. You know, they're also, and again, I hate to make generalizations, but sometimes they can be a little bit shy at the beginning because maybe they're a little embarrassed about their English. But just throw it out there. Throw out your Spanish, and you are in. Um, Hey, Elaine, thank you for commenting. There's people watching. Yeah, it is easy enough to get a pensionado visa. Visa situation can be a challenge. Back to what I was saying earlier, it's like, hey, get ready to bring docs that you were never told you were supposed to have. If you get a good lawyer, it is seamless. I'm glad, Elaine, you've had a great experience, and that's awesome. There are thousands of foreigners out here. Why do some of them leave? You know, I mean, maybe it's because they miss family as they're getting older. It's not that hard to get back, though. I mean, it's depending on where you're coming from, right? That shouldn't be a misperception. No, I mean, you can kind of just look at the map and look at flight times and figure that out quickly. What else have people gotten frustrated about with Panama? Man, I think I got about 70% of it. Again, would welcome any comments. You guys watching this know just as much as I do or more about what frustrates you and what people. Last piece of advice. If you're thinking about coming to Panama, talk to as many people as you can. Just talk to one real estate agent because we're all you need. Now talk to another one just to get a sense of how awesome we are. Ask expats what they don't like about Panama because expats will be happy to tell you what they love about Panama. But ask them what they miss about their home country, what frustrates them about living here, what they wish they knew. Yes. And I agree with you, man. Unclaimed jewel. We are still below the radar. Panama is still perceived as this like financial haven. Oh, bank accounts. Getting a bank account is pretty annoying. Be prepared. I mean, if you have to do anything other than put in or take money out in a bank, budget 1 hour. It's obnoxious, but it's a fact of life. So we just deal with it. I learned patience when I moved here in 2007. It's a gift. How complicated is buying a condo as a foreigner? Thousands of people have come before you, and it's not that complicated until it gets complicated. Do you need a mortgage? Are you using a entity to purchase the property, whether that's a corporation or a foundation? Who's on the other side of the deal? Are they in Panama? Do they need to use powers of attorney? Depending on their structure, do they have a mortgage? Do they have some back issues like taxes? A lot of people kind of wait to pay their property taxes. The good news is there's a massive precedent for foreigners buying property in Panama, Mr. or Miss N. And hey, you got the good guys on the line. We've been doing this for 15 years. So, well, I've been doing this for 15 years. I opened the company 13 years ago, 2008. Easy enough to apply for residency as well, depending on your nationality. There are a couple different channels. Other thing is, hey, tourist visa, still 180 days, come and go. They're not really cracking down again, but they go in waves, cracking down on what they call the perpetual tourist, which is basically like, hey, I'm here on a tourist visa. If you're here on a tourist visa, it's a little trickier to get a bank account set up. And yeah, a little unknown place. I'm with you, Elaine. It is still unknown, and it still has a perception of like a financial haven. Sure, no non-territorial tax system, which means as a Canadian or a European, you can claim your residency in Panama and you don't pay taxes back there. As an American, doesn't make a bit of difference because we pay taxes everywhere, don't we? All good. It is what it is. Property selling in the Azuero area. Yes. And Janet, here's a little piece of advice that most realtors won't give you. We will. Buy in Panama, on the buy side in Panama, it's kind of cheap to buy because you don't have that many transaction costs. However, when you're selling property in Panama, it gets a little expensive. Our commissions vary anywhere from 5 to 6%, depending on the property, sometimes even a little bit higher if it's a small ticket. And then you've got taxes. Plan on about 5% taxes too. So you just bought a $200,000 property. Let's say it goes up to 300. Yay, you just made 100,000. Not quite. Plan on about 10% of your costs going to the transaction. So 330, 270. Hey, you still made 70 grand. That's all right. Appreciation has not been much in the last few years. Watch some other of my videos and you'll see kind of pricing insights. But yeah, thank you, N. Come on down. The weather will be great in January. COVID-wise, agreed, Elaine, it's gotten a lot easier. My goodness, we were slow on the uptake. We had COVID testing centers in the airport, which sounds very progressive. Really, it was, I don't know, hindsight, nobody got COVID quite right, did they? That's okay. We roll with it. Love the comments. Appreciate y'all. If there's anything else that you would like me to cover in future videos, this was a topic somebody asked to talk about. And hey, we keep it real at Panama Equity. So the idea is managing expectations. If you know what you're getting into, you're in a good position. Panama is lovely. There are a lot of foreigners down here. It's not that hard or complicated. We have a very strict rule of law when it comes to ownership and title. Very, very few instances of properties getting, what's the word? Expropriated. Hot places right now, Elaine. Santana's interesting, which is sort of the verge of Casco Viejo. You've got about 300 new units coming in right outside of Casco. Still a little dicey. We're getting like the nightclubs moving in and like the hip sort of galleries and stuff, which are usually the first movers into a new real estate area, at least in the city. So I still like the outskirts of Casco. It's cheaper, path of progress. What areas? I mean, Veraguas is always interesting just because it's so untapped, right? Like we're not in Santa Fe, we're not in Santiago, so I can't give insight on price movement, but I can tell you that when it comes to value, that province is inexpensive and interesting. Altos has been really busy. Altos is slow and steady in terms of it's been around for what, 20 years now. So it's not like emerging. What other areas? And let's do a video on that, a different video, because poor folks, 18 minutes into this, I don't want to go off on a tangent. But when it's just me, Okay, guys. So I think that'll do it. Thank you for watching. I'll address comments that I don't get to after this is live directly.